The Breeze, the Guardian, two mobs that have been in this game for a while now and honestly, still kind of underused, so I rebuilt them from scratch into something way worse, something that could absolutely destroy your world forever. The Breeze shoots little wind puffs at you, annoying but not very dangerous, but I kept looking at it and thinking, this thing is basically a baby tornado, so what if we just finish the job? So I began by modifying the head and the rods, which is basically all it's made of. I wanted to make it look like a creepy wind spirit, so I built its head to look pretty massive as it's going to be at the center of the tornado. Then, I give it somewhat of a creepy face with an open mouth like it's perpetually stuck screaming. And for the rods, I wasn't very sure at first, giant rods just wouldn't look very good, so I replaced them with these giant hands that have wiggly moving fingers and will rotate around the giant breeze. Ugh. So now that the head was done, I had to make the main part, and that's when the fun began. The body is stacked like cylindrical segments on top of each other, each one rotated slightly from the last, so the whole thing is always mid-spiral, even when it's just standing there. And I gave it this noisy wind texture, scaled it massively, and I made it so the sky goes dark and rainy when it's summoned. And eventually, a giant tornado came to life, and this thing is pretty epic. But a tornado can't be a tornado without the massive destruction, right? So I made it so as it moves around, it will start sucking up the blocks and breaking things around. So yeah, don't fight this near your base. But how do you get to fight this thing, you may ask? And the answer is, you need to build an altar. 8 chisel stone bricks in a ring, and in the center you place the Vortex altar block, which is a new block crafted with glass and wind charge, and it's basically this tiny little baby speeding tornado inside of a glass encasing. You know, it's kinda cute. Imagine having this block inside of your house as decoration and then you accidentally break it and set free a tornado and it destroys everything inside. Once it's placed, you have to interact with it using a wind charge, and then the tornado starts spinning and the boss starts glowing out of the block. Phase 1 is pretty slow, like it's giving you time to appreciate what's about to happen to your world. The first thing it does is just look at you, the eyes track you, and then a chunk of dirt comes out of the ground and flies at your face, which kinda breaks the tension but also hurts a lot. Because that's the first real attack, it rips blocks out of the ground and throws them at you. Not one block, but a chunk of the terrain in real time and turning it into a very deadly projectile. The longer the fight goes on, the more the arena starts looking like a construction site after an earthquake. Craters everywhere and the ground just gone in patches. Then comes the pool. Everything in a circular range gets yanked upward. I mean everything. Dirt, stone, whatever you were standing on, and including you. It just floats there for a moment, hanging in the air like the game forgot about gravity, and then it comes back down, all at once, dealing a lot of damage. This is probably the most destructive attack, and also the most impressive one, I think. If you build anything nearby before the fight, well, I'm sorry. Why would you do that? The third attack is a constant ring of expanding lightning that will always hit you. But the battle can't be just like this forever, and I wanted to add a second phase. At 50% health, the 4 giant hands start spinning on their own, each one forming a much smaller tornado, which also destroys blocks but also can home toward you. So now you have the main boss and 4 smaller tornadoes all working together, and the whole arena looks like it's inside of a blender. You can defeat each one of the tornadoes and they go back to just being the big one in the center to make your life easier. This is the phase where most of my playtesters gave up. I was the only playtester. To deal damage, you have to hit the obvious giant head, the floating face sitting inside of the eye of the Vortex, which sounds straightforward until you realize that you're also trying to not get hit by someone's roof. You have to push into the storm to actually hit it, which feels very wrong on instinct. You can hit it with arrows, but arrows don't do quite a lot of damage. The window is short, hit it, get out, dodge the debris, then go back in. It's a rhythm once you figure it out, but the first few attempts you're mostly getting launched. So after you manage to defeat the Vortex, its head drops from the sky and it releases some very interesting loot. It drops the Vortex core, and this thing is fun. So hear me out. If you right click, you launch into the air, wrapped in your own tornado that gives you temporary flight towards where you're looking at. It's kinda dramatic, but it's basically like a controllable elytra that doesn't really need fireworks. It does not last forever though. So this thing is very useful for relocating or during boss fights. But that's not all. And here is my favorite feature. If you hold shift and click on the blocks nearby, they get pulled toward you. They orbit around you like a spinning field of debris, and then you can just fire them like a shotgun, and it does so much damage. If you manage to hit every single block onto the target, it actually is very, very strong. It is a railgun made of someone else's house, and I will not apologize for that. If someone builds something ugly, you can just shoot it straight back at them. Alright, so debris is turning into a giant disaster, and I wanted another one, but now deep underwater. The Guardian. It is already one of the most unsettling mobs in my opinion. If you actually stop and look at it, it's got this giant big eye, laser, and it just floats in the dark, and then it does this horrible jump scare that has already gave me my fair share of mini heart attacks. So I made this creature extremely large and flat so that it can fit in the oceans, but also large enough so that it can have a structure on it. So I made it shaped kind of like a manta ray with huge fins and a tail. The skin is made of cracked rock on its back, kind of like the Guardian already is. Then I added a prismarine temple on top, and to finalize it, I covered it in sea grass and coral. Of course it had to keep its singular eye, it is still a Guardian after all. And this is where you can hit for extra damage, basically a giant weak spot. And I decided to call this boss the Abyssal 1. For this boss, you don't have to build an altar. You just have to find this rare drop dropped from the Elder Guardians, called Abyssal Conch. You have to be in an ocean that's wide enough to use it, and eventually you just hear the distant rumble of a giant creature making its way toward you. You don't know where it's coming from, which honestly it's kind of freaky. But the point of this boss is that it has a bunch of different underwater attacks, some of them inspired by natural disasters. The pounce is the first thing it does, and the first time I saw it, it actually freaked me out. The entire creature launches itself out of the water, and when it lands, it creates this giant tsunami that expands and deals massive damage. It may also permanently alter the ocean or even flood the surface. I made it so a lot of the water eventually disappears, but in my first tests it was way more intense. So it created these giant blobs of water that would take over the land and allow the boss to make its way toward you on the surface, which is horrifying. Imagine a fish pulling water out of the ocean just to find you on the surface. Yeah. Second attack is the whirlpool. The boss starts rotating and the water starts pulling inward. Everything in range spirals toward it. If you don't have respiration, you will drown because you get pulled all the way to the bottom and then launched away. Its third attack is a loud screech that stuns you and keeps you blind for a little bit. And its last attack, of course, is the eye laser. It's extremely deadly, but this is the time that gives you the chance to actually hit the eye and do a lot of damage. At 50%, it enters frenzy mode. It goes crazy, which is indicated by the obvious red health bar. The attack frequency goes up and the patterns start being random. It stops feeling like a boss and more like a natural disaster you're inside of. It is very hard. But if you somehow manage to kill it, I did using the Vortex core by the way. See, I told you it was pretty strong. It drops the Abyssal Singularity, which you use to craft the Abyssal Trident. If you throw it upward, you'll get launched with it, kinda like a trident with Riptide. But when you land on the water, it creates this mini tsunami on impact. You are the tsunami now, and it does so much damage. You can even abuse this feature by putting a small pool of water on the surface, and this way you can create really deadly tsunamis even if you're not in the water. So it's kind of broken, but it's fun. Not everything needs to be balanced. If this wasn't crazy enough for you, you can also throw the trident itself and it creates this mini black hole where it lands. It sucks everything nearby toward it, then explodes. It's actually incredibly useful against the boss itself because if you shoot near the eye, it keeps doing continuous damage. And to test these features, what's the best subject than villagers and an innocent family of villagers, right? So you can see here that all the villagers is pretty much instantly die the moment we summon the black hole or when we use the tsunami. The warden is still pretty tough though, but you can still defeat it. Maybe you just really hate fish, you know? You know what? Yeah, the fish need to learn a thing or two. How come they can swim but I can't, huh? If you want to download it, it will be available for Java. Join the Discord in the description down below to be notified of when it's available. The sky and the ocean are now both actively trying to kill me, so I'll be making my way out. Bye bye.